An invitation to give a talk at Lemsin Online Seminar in Tunisia. So today I will be talking about the Caldon type inverse problems for the nonlinear PDEs, so elliptic and hyperbolic one. So the first part of the talk I will be talking about the elliptic case. So before going to the nonlinear equation, so let's discuss about the linear conductivity equation first. So Alberto Caldon, who is an engineer, so he asked the following inverse problems, which is motivated by the oil exposure and seismic imaging. So he asked the following questions: by making the steady state voltage and current measurements at the boundary of a medium, can one recover the conductivity of that medium? So mathematically, this can be modeled by the conductivity equation. So this is L gamma of u. This is just a notation, and it is an elliptic equation because this gamma is the strictly positive C infinity function, and this is divergence of gamma grade u equal to 0 in the medium, and u equal to f on the boundary. So this stands for, physically this stands for the voltage, and this equation is known as the conductivity equation. And as I mentioned, this gamma is the conductivity of the medium. So, and what Caldon asked is, suppose you are given this n gamma, which is the map which map the voltage to the current. So can one determine the conductivity gamma? So this is the problem which Caldon asked. So he is basically interested in the inversion of this nonlinear map, because this gamma going to n gamma, this is a nonlinear map in the sense that if u1 is solution corresponding to gamma 1 and u2 is solution corresponding to the gamma 2, then this gamma 1 u1 plus u2 is not a solution corresponding to gamma 1 plus gamma 2. So in that sense, this is a nonlinear map, and he was interested in the inversion of this map. So is it okay? Is it audible, Itisin?
Sorry?
Hello? Yeah, is it audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So he was interested in the inversion of this nonlinear map, which is gamma going to n gamma. So he could not solve it properly, but what he did is he linearized this map. Linearized in the sense that he calculated the derivative of this map, gamma going to n gamma, which is the Fréchet derivative, and he calculated that, and he found that this derivative near the constant conductivity, at the constant conductivity, it is invertible. And so by inverse function theorem, you can have the injectivity near the constant conductivity. That's what Caldron did. And later on, the Sylvester and Ullmann in their work in the Annals of Mathematics paper, so they proved the full injectivity of this map, gamma going to n gamma, and they introduced very powerful techniques which are the use of the complex geometric optics solutions. And so in this talk we will be discussing about the nonlinear version of this equation. So here it was a linear equation, and what we have studied is on the nonlinear conductivity equation. So this is our equation. So again, the omega is a bounded open set and with smooth boundary, and we consider the following boundary value problem. So this is the divergence of C vector and u equal to f on the boundary, where this C is of this form: C equal to gamma x into q plus mod q square into b. This is the quadratic part, and plus there is a higher order nonlinearity. Here this q is in Rn. So if we don't have this b and these two terms, this is just the linear conductivity equation, what we saw in the first slide. And in this case, what we have added is we have added the quadratic term as well. So that's why this is the nonlinear term, and this q is in Rn. So basically what you have is C vector of x comma gradient of u. This will become gamma grade u plus grade u mod square plus into b vector. So this is the nonlinearity, and then there is a higher order nonlinearity r vector, which is of this form. So r vector represents the higher order nonlinearity, and these are the assumptions on this. And here this gamma is strictly positive, and this is a C infinity function, and b vector also we assume it to be smooth function. And so first we give the well posedness of the forward problem, and that is the work by Kang and Nakamura in 2002. So what they proved is, if p is bigger than n, less than infinity, then for any there exists epsilon delta such that whatever f you take in this class will satisfy this is less than epsilon. This boundary value problem has a unique solution, and that solution will satisfy this estimate. In fact, what they have shown is uw2p norm is less than equal to constant time fw2 minus 1 over p comma p norm on boundary of omega. So here this w2p and w2 minus 1 over p comma p, they are the usual LP Sobolev space of order 2 and 2 minus 1 over p in omega and on boundary of omega respectively. So they proved the well-posedness of this problem, forward problem, and so based on this we can define our boundary operator, which we call the Dirichlet-Neumann map. So that is defined in this way: lambda c into epsilon f. Here this epsilon is a small parameter, and so lambda c into epsilon f equal to nu dot c, and here f is in w2 minus 1 over p comma p, where p is, as mentioned in the previous slide, which is bigger than n. Okay, so if p is bigger than n, then this f will, by the Sobolev embedding, this f will be L infinity. F is bounded. So this epsilon f, so that we can take the space of the boundary values which are bounded by some constant, fixed constant f, a fixed constant, some, let's say c, and then we can multiply this epsilon, which is small enough, so to make sure that it is the boundary data is small, so that we can have this well-posedness of this forward problem. And here u is the solution to the boundary value problem, and nu is the outward unit normal to boundary of omega at x belongs to omega. So this map is continuous because of the previous theorem on the well-posedness. And now the question is, the inverse problem which we are interested in is, so can we identify this gamma and b vector from the knowledge of this DN map lambda c? So this is the inverse problem we are interested in, and so what we have shown is, so if we know this DN map lambda c, we can have the pointwise reconstruction for the linear part gamma and the coefficient b vector of the quadratic part of c. So we kind of gave the algorithm for the explicit solution for this inverse problem, and so for uniqueness for the above problem is already known, and it is in the work of Kang and Nakamura in 2002. So what we have given is the reconstruction algorithm. So we can calculate gamma in terms of the given data, and similarly we can calculate b vector in terms of the given data. So that is what we have studied, and so in this direction there have been several works by for example, by Isako and Sylvester, Isako, Neckman, and very recently there has been a lot of works on inverse problems for nonlinear elliptic PD, which are by Lassas, Lintonen, Lane, Salo, and Oksanen, Fizmamadi, and Krupsuk-Ilman, and there are several others work which this is very partial list, because recently there have been a lot of works in this direction for the nonlinear elliptic PDs, and few of them are here. So these are mainly for the semilinear and quasi-linear elliptic PD with the partial or full data. So all those kind of works are there. So sketch of the proof, our argument for proving the theorem, which is first we use the epsilon expansion of the solution, and using the epsilon expansion we can know the DN map lambda gamma for the connectivity equation. And once you know the DN map for the connectivity equation, we can reconstruct gamma by using the argument of the Ender-Neckman paper in 1988. So we can have reconstruction for gamma, and then what we do, we use a special polarization and against complex geometric optics solutions for the connectivity equation, we can reconstruct b vector. So we will see all these steps in a brief details in the next few slides. So let's start with the epsilon expansion of the solution. So let me denote UF, the solution to the boundary value problem, and with the Dirichlet data equal to epsilon f. So that is a solution to the our original equation, and which is nonlinear conductivity equation. And then this is the epsilon expansion uf, which is epsilon u1f plus epsilon square u2f plus order of epsilon cube. So this is the epsilon expansion, which is guaranteed by the argument of the papers from Kang and Nakamura in 2002. And then using this epsilon expansion, we can write this c vector of x comma gradient x uf in terms of the epsilon expansion. This will take this form using the expression of c vector, and we just plug this uf in here, we will get this expression. Now since we are given that divergence of c vector is 0, so therefore if we compare the various power of epsilon, we will end up with the linear conductivity equation for u1, and this is the linear conductivity again, but with a source term for the u2. So these are the two equations we get for u1 and u2, and we can also use the epsilon expansion for the dn map. So if we write the dn map in the epsilon expansion, this will take this form, which is epsilon, order of epsilon is of this form. We just put this uf in the definition of the dn map. Definition of dn map. So we will end up with this kind of expression, order of epsilon and epsilon square and order of epsilon cube. So but what we are this dn map is given to us. So this let me write this as epsilon g1 plus epsilon square g2 and all these things. So from here, since this is known, so we can know g1, g2 and all these things, all the power of epsilon, because epsilon is like varying in a neighborhood of 0. And so once we know this, then we can know the lambda gamma f, which is the dn map for the linear conductivity equation, which is equal to g1 of x, and gamma x d nu of u2 of x plus nu x dot b. This is also we can know. This is basically the order of epsilon square term. So these two things are known, and the first one is just the dn map for the conductivity equation, and which we use to reconstruct gamma by using the argument of the work by Neckman in 1988. So we can reconstruct gamma. And now once we know gamma and this Dirichlet f, this is in our hand because this is a measurement, we can know u1f in omega. So once we know u1f, and then since in this in the equation of u2, so this u1f is known. So this, and then from here we will reconstruct this b vector. So let's see. So as I mentioned earlier, we will use a special polarization, so which is of this form. So if we take f and g in this space, and if we denote u2 is just u2 of f plus g minus u2 of f minus g. So here u2 of f plus g is like the u2 coming from the original equation by using the epsilon expansion with the Dirichlet equal to f plus g and f minus g respectively. These are the solutions. Now if we see that, then u2 will satisfy this equation. So u2 will have this equation, 4 times divergence of b gradient of u1 dot gradient of u1g equal to 0, and u2 is 0 on the boundary. So and from here we want to reconstruct b vector. So what do? We take a solution w, which is solution to the conductivity equation, and we multiply it. That is a kind of test function, and we will get an integral identity. So to reconstruct w, we take any w which is solution to this the conductivity equation, and we denote beta w by gamma power minus half into chi omega b dot gradient w. And if you multiply the previous equation, this equation 8 by w, and integrate over omega, we will end up with this identity. So here the right hand side is known because gamma d nu of u2 plus 4 nu b into gradient of u1 f gradient of u1g. This quantity is known to us because of this is order of epsilon square term in the dn map, and w is the test function which is arbitrary. So right hand side is known, for any w which solves this equation. So now from here, if we can reconstruct this beta w, then from there we will reconstruct b, vector b. So to do that, we will use the Caesar solution for u1f and u1g, because now u1f and u1g are both are known, because gamma has been constructed and f and g are the Dirichlet data, which is the measurement. So that is also in our hand. Okay, so we'll use the complex geometric optics solutions for u1f and u1g, which takes the following form. So u1 is of this form and u2 is of this form. Here this u1 and u1f and u1g to be solution to the conductivity equation, we must have zeta I dot zeta I is 0, and Ri will satisfy the following equations. And then this has been proved in this kind of solution. Construction of this kind of solution have been proved in the work of Sylvester and Ullmann, and with this estimate on Ri, and zeta I obviously satisfy this zeta I dot zeta I is 0. So construction of the solution in equation 10 is known, and we will plug this solution, but first we need to choose zeta 1 and zeta 2 in such a way that when we multiply, their sum will give kind of Fourier transform. Okay, so that's what we do. So here basically we will choose zeta 1 and zeta 2 such that their sum will give kind of Fourier transform. So what we do, let xi belongs to Rn be any vector, and we choose eta and k such that they are 3 orthogonal vectors. This is the place where I am using n is bigger than equal to 3. Okay, so if n equal to 2, then we cannot have this kind of 3 vectors which satisfy this condition. And in n equal to 2, this problem is not solved yet. Only for n bigger than equal to 3 it has been resolved. And so using this choice of zeta 1 and zeta 2 belongs to Cn, we can have zeta 1 equal to Rk minus I into xi by 2 plus S eta. So we will choose in this form. Now if you see, the sum of zeta 1 and zeta 2 is nothing but I times I, right? And here R and S are the large parameter, they will go to infinity. So using this choice of zeta 1 and zeta 2 in the integral identity, and if we take a mod zeta I goes to infinity or S goes to infinity, so if S is going to infinity, then obviously R will also go to infinity. We will end up with the knowing this quantity. We can know this quantity after that, and this hold for any W solving the conductivity equation. Now from here, now since we know that gamma is known to us, and beta W is in beta W, gamma power half into beta W, this is nothing but gamma half into B dot gradient of W. Now we already know that gamma half is known. So what we can know is B dot gradient of W is known for any solution W solving this. So now, so this B is a n vector. So now the idea is if we can choose n solution of the conductivity equation such that their gradients are linearly independent, so that we will form a system of linear equation which has unique solution. So from there we will reconstruct the B vector. So but this is guaranteed, this choice of this Wj for such that L gamma of Wj is 0, which is the solution to conductivity equation, and their gradients are linearly independent. This is guaranteed by a lemma in the paper of Kang and Nakamura. So they have proved it by using the CGO solutions. And using this choice of, so now what we have is, we have B vector dot gradient of Wj is known for all Wj, and we denote this known value by Fwj. Now since the gradient Wj are linearly independent, so that means we can write B dot gradient Wj that as a system of equations. So we will end up with knowing B vector in this form by inverting this derivative of the derivative of the function which map Rn to or omega to W1 W2 Wn. So that, and derivative of that map. So this is invertible. This is guaranteed by our choice of Wj, because gradient of Wj are linearly independent. So in this way we will have the reconstruction for B vector in omega. Yeah, so this completes the proof for the elliptic case. Next, we will go to the Caldon type inverse problem for the nonlinear hyperbolic. So there, how much time do I have, Ibtisim?
You still have a lot of time, and don't worry.
Okay. So here we will be discussing about the nonlinear wave equation. So what we assume here is omega is a bounded domain in Rn, and it has a smooth boundary, and this Q2 denotes the time space domain, which is 0 to t cross omega, and partial Q2 denote the 0 to t cross boundary of omega. This is called the lateral boundary. And here we consider the following initial boundary value problem for the wave equation. So this is dt square of u minus Laplacian of u, plus this is the potential term ax into u, which is equal to divergence with respect to t comma x, both variable, and c vector of tx gradient tx of u, and this is in qt. Now, these are the initial conditions: u0 of x equal to epsilon phi x, dt of u0 x equal to epsilon psi x, and this holds for x belongs to omega, and utx equal to epsilon into ftx, where tx belongs to lateral boundary. And this is the initial boundary value problem for the nonlinear wave equation. And here this c vector of tx comma q is of this form, where p vector plus r vector. Here q is any c1 plus n vector in complex 1 plus n complex vector, and this p vector equal to mod q square into b vector of tx, and we will assume that this b vector belongs to c0 infinity of qt, which is the compactly supported function in qt, and this r has the this r vector which represents the higher order nonlinearity, and this belongs to c infinity of omega bar cross h, and this h is the space given by this. And under these assumptions, we can have the following well-posedness for the forward problem. So let m bigger than equal to n by 2 plus 3, and phi0, phi1 belongs to this, and f belongs to this. Then for any t greater than 0, there exists epsilon 0, which is depending on h, t, and m, where h is this one, which is the bound on the higher order nonlinearity. Such that for any epsilon you take, which is bigger than 0, less than epsilon 0, this equation has a unique solution, and which lies in the following energy class. And moreover, it admits an epsilon expansion, which we call epsilon expansion, and it is of this form. U can be written as epsilon u1 plus epsilon square u2 plus higher order terms of epsilon, and this holds when epsilon is small enough. So based on this, we can define our input output map, which is defined as follows. So lambda c a is epsilon phi psi, epsilon f is given by, this is the Neumann data on the lateral boundary, and u and dt of u at final time, and this is defined for phi psi f belongs to this, and this map is continuous because of this well-posedness of the forward problem. And so this input output operator makes sense. So then we define our the problem of interest, which is the inverse problem, which we are going to consider is the uniqueness here. So the point is, if we are given this lambda c, the input output map, can we recover this potential A and the coefficient of the quadratic nonlinearity, which is p vector of x comma q. This is our aim, and that is, in mathematically we can write in this form. Suppose if you are given lambda t of c1 a1 equal to lambda t c2 a2 for any phi psi f belongs to this, then can we have a1 equal to a2 and p1 equal to p2. So here this lambda t c1 a1 and these are the input output operator as defined in the previous slide, when a equal to ai and c equal to ci for I equal to 1, 2. So this is our problem of interest, and more precisely, this is the result which we have proved, and this is for, let's say, for I equal to 1, 2, and let pi vector equal to this. This represents again the quadratic nonlinearity, and Ci is this. Oh, sorry, this Bi should be Bi is time dependent. A is time independent, but B is time dependent. So this should be Bi of Tx. And C vector of x comma q is of this form, and Ai, Pi, and Ri are satisfy the same condition as that of A, P, and R, which we mentioned in the very first slide in the second part of the talk. And Ui with a solution to the equation 15, which is the nonlinear wave equation with C equal to Ci and A equal to Ai. These are the notations actually. And then suppose this lambda t of Ci is the input output operator corresponding to Ui. Now the question is, suppose we are given, suppose this lambda t C1 A1 equal to lambda t C2 A2 for any phi psi f belongs to this, then we will have A1 equal to A2 and B1 equal to B2. So this is the uniqueness result which we have obtained, and in this direction again there are a lot of results for the nonlinear hyperbolic, and recently there have been a lot of studies for the inverse problem for nonlinear PDEs. And so this problem is kind of a generalization of this work, which is the work of Nakamura and Watanabe. They did in the one dimensional case. So we have kind of extended it to the higher dimension case, but with the constant conductivity. And there are several other people who have studied this nonlinear hyperbolic problem in the Euclidean, Lorentzian, or Riemannian manifold setting as well. So there have been a lot of works in this direction. And so sketch of the proof is again the similar idea which we have used. So first thing is we will use the epsilon expansion, which is the linearization of the solution to the nonlinear equation, and then the equality of input output operator. From this we can have the equality of lambda t of Ai, which is the input output operator for the linear wave equation with potential. Now suppose we know this by then from the result of Rakesh and Symes in 1988, we can prove the uniqueness and reconstruction for A. And once we know A, and since the initial and boundary data are in our hand, so we can know the solution B. And then we again use the special polarization which we used as in the case of elliptic case, and the special solution which we call geometric optic solution for the linear equation to get the uniqueness for B vector. So more detail about this. The argument is quite similar to what we did for the elliptic case. So more detail about this work can be found in this paper, and the first work, the first part of the presentation is based on this work, and that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for the interesting talk. So are there any questions or comments, please? Oui, General. So, yes, Professor.
Then thank you, Manuel, for your nice talk.
Yeah, thank you, Professor.
Thank you. And maybe it's the first time to meet you face to face.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one question about the smallness conditions for the boundary condition or the initial data.
So
yeah,
that we require for proving the well-posedness of the forward problem, and somewhere in the argument we use the fixed point theorem, and to show that that is a contraction to get the fixed point. So that's where we use that smallness condition.
This for the technical reasons, or
it is because of our method maybe, or it's a technical reason because we use the fixed point argument to prove the well-posedness of the forward problem. And to get the fixed point, so we need to show that the map is the contraction with the,
Okay, I see.
yeah. So that's where we use the epsilon, this smallness of the data.
Okay. And for general case, if you consider gamma is the anisotropic case, gamma is a matrix, like matrix. There are some results in this.
No, so far I have not considered that far, but yeah. So you mean in the first equation? Just 1 minute.
Yeah, for example, Calderon problems.
Okay, when gamma is a matrix. Okay, so in this case, you mean when gamma is a matrix. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the problem is we don't have the uniqueness for the anisotropic Calderon problem, right?
Of course. Gauge transformation or gauge invariance.
Yes. We can get only some information. It is we don't have the full uniqueness, right? So far, and in fact, there is a gauge invariance. So in our method, what we have used is like based on our method. So we need the reconstruction of gamma fully. So this approach may not work for the matrix conductivity case. But what can be generalized is instead of this C vector, if we take this as a Laplace-Beltrami operator here. Yeah, instead of this in the divergence form, we just take the Laplace-Beltrami plus the second order nonlinearity. Then there is a chance of recovering this B. I mean in the Riemannian manifold setting, but we need to assume that the metric is known in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, in that case it can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will finish with my last question. Just for your Formula 9.
Okay.
Can you come back to this one? Gamma in the left-hand side is maybe is the difference between two coefficients or?
No. Here actually this gamma we have already reconstructed.
Okay.
This gamma is the reconstructed one. Now we fix gamma because the gamma 1 and gamma 2 are same.
Okay.
And so we denote that as gamma, and then we vary the Dirichlet data f. And with respect to this Dirichlet data, this u1 depend on the Dirichlet data linearly when gamma is fixed.
Okay.
And it is already reconstructed from the knowledge of lambda gamma. Yeah. So this gamma is just it's a gamma. It's the single one.
Okay. And here you extend gamma outside omega by something, or because here we integrate over Rn.
Yes. But the beta W which we have defined, in that we have taken the characteristic function. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So, okay. Thank you, Professor.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr.
Identify the parameter gamma. We have used the operator Dirichlet-Newman. Then we have used an infinite number of measurements. That what happens if we have only a finite number of measurements?
Yeah, in that case, we need to restrict the class of our coefficients as well. Like in the case of Calderon problem also for the linear conductivity, and if you take the finite number of measurement, then you need to assume that gamma is also lying in some, suppose you are taking n measurement, so the gamma will also lie in n-dimensional subspace of the L infinity space. So that kind of study have been done for the linear equation.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for the nonlinear case, it has not been done so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please. The parameter, the parameter epsilon plays an essential role in the identification. So that the decomposition problem are equivalent, the initial problem and the two decomposition problems. These are equivalent, the two problems.
You mean when f is small enough, or epsilon f, or if we take epsilon f?
The formula 6 and formula 6 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Formula 5
Yeah.
is just the solution for the u1.
Yeah.
And formula 6 is the equation for u2.
Equal for you, yeah.
Yeah.
So does the initial problem, the initial
Yes,
problem is equivalent
Yeah.
to the two problems 5 and 6.
No. Actually, the way of our looking at proving the well-posedness of the forward problem. So what
Yeah.
we assumed that u is of this form in the equation 4, and then we tried to find the equation for u1 and u2. And here we assumed that there is another term which is w.
Okay.
And we showed that w is order of epsilon cube. So that's why we are writing in this form. And then we plug this uf in this equation.
Yeah.
And by equating this divergence of this is 0, then from there we will get formula 5 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah. And so since we are only interested in the quadratic part, so that's why we are taking only up to here. So if you are interested in the higher order nonlinearity as well, let's say the cubic case, so then we will take one more term here, that is epsilon cube into u3, and then there will be order of epsilon 4. So, but that leads to very complicated, and so we could not tackle that case so far, the cubic case. Yeah. So that's why we only considered up to the quadratic part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in our laboratory.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself if you have any question or comment. Okay, if not, then thank you again, Manmohan, for the nice talk. And thank you everyone for attending the seminar. So, à la prochaine. See you next time.
Thank you, Ibtisim.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Manmohan.
Ibtisim.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.